Hello everybody, welcome to another month at Vine Path. My name is Mariana. I am the wine buyer at Baco's Wine and Cheese, located in Boston, Massachusetts. Vine Path is a wine club in which every month I pick 3 to 5 wines and we explore a specific topic in the world of wine. I think the best way to learn about wine is to have it be interactive and drink with others and talk about what we learn and taste and smell, and so Vine Path is a way to do that. This month the topic is the grape Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is a grape that really means a lot to me. When I was starting to learn about wine, it was probably my first grape crush. I remember in my early 20s living in Austin, Texas, I picked up this book, The Secrets of Sommeliers by Jordan McKay and Raj Par, and the section on Cabernet Franc. I remember reading that and being like, I have to go out and drink all the Cabernet Franc I can. I would go to Justine's Brasserie, which is the coolest French-style bar in Austin. You feel like you're in a different time era when you're in that bar, and I would order a glass of Chinon and I would feel so cool and so sophisticated, and it was one of those first experiences with wine that I remember very, very fondly, and definitely a gateway into other great regions and grapes and styles of wine in the world. So it was really fun for me to come back to it and explore it this month. So we're trying 4 wines today, 3 reds and 1 sparkling rosé. Usually I start from lightest to heaviest, but just so we can dig into the expression of Cabernet Franc as a red, we're going to start with that this month. So a little bit about the grape Cabernet Franc. All signs point to it's a grape that originated in the Basque region in northern Spain / southwestern France. It is kind of a titan grape. It is the parent of a few famous grapes. For example, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Carmener. So Cabernet Franc was crossed with different grapes to create those grapes. For example, Cabernet Franc was crossed with Sauvignon Blanc to create Cabernet Sauvignon. And though those grapes can be very different from each other, there are definitely similarities in all of them, which we will discuss later. So Cabernet Franc is a very interesting grape. It ripens early, so it does really well in cooler climates, though it can still be grown in warmer climates. And a very typical characteristic of it when it is in a cooler climate are the herbaceous green pepper characters that it has. That is due to a chemical compound called methoxypyrazine. People in the wine world call them pyrazines for short. It is a chemical compound that develops in the grape right as it starts to ripen. You find it also in Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmener. It's that compound that gives it that green, grassy, herbaceous character. When you keep ripening the grape, it actually starts losing a little bit of that compound. So Cabernet Franc in warmer climates doesn't have as much of that characteristic. Interesting enough, that chemical compound is also found in ladybugs. So sometimes if you're drinking a wine that has a lot of pyrazine compounds, you are left to wonder, are there ladybugs in the wine? Hopefully not, though it's possible. Some of the more classic regions that you might know Cabernet Franc from is Bordeaux and the Loire Valley. In Bordeaux, it's very much a blending grape. You see it on both sides of the banks, both left and right, more prominent in the right bank, which is a little bit of a cooler climate, and it can properly ripen in those conditions. In Bordeaux, vintages can really vary, and varietals like Cabernet Sauvignon are a bit harder to get just right every year. A varietal like Cabernet Franc, similar to Merlot, is sometimes easier to ripen. So it's a form of insurance for some winemakers that once they have good Cabernet Franc, that they're going to have a good vintage. Because even if the Cabernet Sauvignon doesn't ripen perfectly, at least they have Cabernet Franc to blend in and balance the end result. One of the most famous Cabernet Francs out there is from Château Cheval Blanc. This is a Bordeaux from the Saint-Emilion region that is predominantly Cabernet Franc, about 60%, and the rest is Merlot. It was shouted out in Sideways when the main character has a 1961 Cheval Blanc that he ends up drinking out of a paper cup. The irony is that throughout the whole movie, he said he hated Merlot, he talked badly about Cabernet Franc, but it was his most prized possession. So usually we go from lighter to heavier. I thought it would be good to actually start with a very traditional style of Cabernet Franc. So we're going to actually end with the lighter wine today. But we're starting with the Messanges Rouge from Domaine de Pallus. The winemaker here is a native Chinon man, Bertrand Cerdice. Chinon is in central Loire Valley, specifically in the Touraine region of the central Loire. And here Cabernet Franc is the main red grape of the region. Bertrand comes from a winemaking family. After he got his enology degree, he actually made his name in Spain. He makes really beautiful Ribera del Dueros, but in the early 2000s, his dad was going to retire and he took the opportunity to come back to his homeland and make very classic style Chinon. The name Messanges Rouge is an ode to Cabernet Franc sometimes being called Messanges in this region. It's like a historic nickname. So off the bat, I get classic characteristics of Cabernet Franc. So kind of a blend of earth, so like almost like wet dirt, like clay, and raspberry, strawberry, almost jammy, but then the earthiness kind of ties it back. There it is, high acidity, good structure, tannins are medium. That's why sometimes Cabernet Franc is such a great bistro red, just because it does have a structure and acidity that goes really well with food, but not overpowering like some other wines can be. It's a great complement. A huge thing I get in Cabernet Franc is also a floral element, somewhere between violets and rose petal. This one definitely has it, but there's some that are over the top that straight up remind me of like a grandma's powder room. I think this is a great place to show Cabernet Franc. It's fruity, it's herbal, it's floral, and in this case, definitely has some minerality. I think it's a beautiful expression. This one you're supposed to drink definitely when it's young. As grilling season has started, this is the perfect wine to have when you have a few roasted vegetables, maybe some hot dogs or steak or mushrooms that you have on the grill. This is the wine to have with that. Up next, we've got a favorite of Bacco's. We've had this producer throughout the years. Zach brought it in. The Big Flower and Botanica wines from Ginny Pavel. This is the Big Flower Cabernet Franc. Ginny Pavel is actually a Massachusetts native. She's from right outside of Boston, from the Framingham area. She's kind of a self-taught winemaker that had a good basic foundation, but in 2008 she moved to South Africa, bought some property, and started to grow vines and make wine. So we're in the Devon Valley, specifically the Protea Heights farm. And this is a farm that actually in the 1940s was the first farm to grow Protea flowers, which is the national flower of South Africa. Ginny dedicates a part of her farming to the Protea flower. So with the help of some winemaker friends and just through trial and error and asking around, she became an amazing winemaker. At this point, I would say she's very seasoned. We have her Chenin Blanc and Pinot Noir at the store, which I'm a huge fan of, but I think a great place to start with her winemaking style is like this Cabernet Franc. So this area in Stellenbosch, though it can get a lot of sun, it still has maritime influence, so it still has a lot of cooling effects from the ocean. And so it's a great way to get a lot of ripe grapes that still have acidity. So off the bat, I get a lot of black pepper, a lot of floral notes. This is more like rose. And then there's a hint of smoke in the background that I really think is intriguing. You get more like ripe pepper, not so much a green necessarily. A lovely blend of fruit and savory character that just makes me want more. I've had this wine a few times, and the more it's opened, the more kind of that smoky, more stewed character comes through. That's really interesting to me. I think the perfect pairing for this would be fajitas with all the onion and cheese and peppers, but some duck confit tacos would be really good too. We've had the pleasure of having Ginny at Bacco's a few times, and she's just so lovely. I will take the opportunity to say that she's coming in the fall, and we'll definitely have her back at Bacco's to do a tasting. So if you're interested, I will definitely do an email blast about that. I think her wines are so unique, but even though they have this like interesting edge, they're very approachable. This is definitely a wine that I would want to bring to a party and feel pretty confident that most people are going to enjoy it. It's always fun when you really like a grape and then you try it from a new region, and it's like falling in love all over again. That's what happened to me when I tried this wine. Tenuta Lenzini's Lenzini Franco, 100% Cabernet Franc from the Lucca province in Italy, specifically the town of Gragnano. So we are inland but not too far from the ocean. Benedetta and Michelle are behind this project. Franco is an ode to Benedetta's grandfather, whose name is Franco. In the back label it just says Cabernet. A lot of times in Italy wine is labeled as Cabernet, and it's kind of unclear whether it's Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon. In this case, it's Cabernet Franc. You do see Cabernet Franc in Italy, specifically in the Bulgaria region, where they do a lot of like kind of Bordeaux style blends. You're seeing Cabernet Franc a little more. It does really well there, as well as in a little more northern Italy in the Friuli region. Smelling this, I feel like it should become more of a thing in this part of Italy. It's just lovely. You get all the spice, all the floral, but still some fruit. But there's like a musky, almost like chocolatey character, like between chocolate and leather. So I do get a lot of dried cherries, cocoa nibs. And the cool thing about Cabernet Franc is, even though it can have some body and tannin, the acidity always kind of makes it feel a little lighter than it actually is. And I couldn't put my finger on why I like this wine so much, but I think it's because instead of getting 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 notes, you get a lot of little notes that just end up being like one big feeling. It kind of reminds me of smelling a vermouth or an amaro. Those are actually flavored with a lot of herbs, spices, and you can't even really put your finger on what it is. It's just like the combination. That's what I get in this wine. It's like a little orange peel, a little anise. I could smell this all day. And it is a young wine. It's a 2021. I think you can definitely age this, and it's probably going to get even more like musky and amaro-like. I would pair this with a brulat of some sorts, whether it be pork or beef. There's a lot of chopped up parsley and fennel and a mix of different kinds of herbs and spices. I think this would complement it beautifully. Next we have Château de Targé's Samour Brut Rosé. Look at that color. It's the Méthode Ancestrale. The title's a little confusing. Usually when you have a sparkling wine and you see Méthode Ancestrale, it means it's a pet nat, which we've had in the past in this wine club. This is not Pétillant Naturel. This is made in the Champagne method. It's just referring to the fact that they're making a very traditional style of sparkling wine from the Samour region in the Loire Valley. The Samour region, the 2 main grapes there are Chenin Blanc for white, and the red is Cabernet Franc. We're in central Loire Valley. The soil there is clay and limestone. A lot of the limestone is actually dug out in order to build a lot of castles, more in the Nantes region in France and even in England. So it created all of these caves in that region, and so it's actually the perfect cave to store wine in. So a lot of these wineries have cellar caves for wine. Château de Targé has been around since the 1600s. It's a very historic winery, but in the 70s, Edouard Pisani-Ferry really revamped it and made it more of a commercial winery. The winemaker now is Paul Pisani-Ferry, so new generation. Since the early 2000s, they've been sustainable. They're actually a part of Terra Vitis, which is a sustainable certification. So they make a lot of more traditional red wines made out of Cabernet Franc, but this is their sparkling rosé. I love exploring a grape in a sparkling form, especially when it's a red grape. So in order to get this rosé color, they don't leave the skins on for as long of a time as they do in a red wine, so it just has a light skin contact, which is why it's this pink color. You totally get the strawberry jam and raspberry notes. Because it's a Champagne method sparkling wine, a huge factor in this winemaking is the yeast, and so you will smell a lot of toasty notes. So this smells like a tart or a croissant. Honestly, this reminds me of when I have toast and butter and I smear on some raspberry jam. One of the reasons this is such a well-balanced sparkling wine is because of the nice, beautiful acidity that Cabernet Franc has. It's just very tart. Only 3,000 bottles are made of this each year. The Samour region is actually a bit warmer and hotter than other areas in the Loire Valley. It's like a microclimate, and so you do get Cabernet Franc that's very ripe, and that's why you get so much fruit. Although I do love always pairing a nice dry sparkling rosé with sheep and goat milk cheeses. I think this would also be really lovely with some salmon that's chopped up with lemon, maybe some greens as a side. The cool thing about Cabernet Franc, you kind of really see it all over the world. I'm sure we can do another month of Cabernet Franc and showcase it anywhere from upstate New York to California to Chile to Australia. I think it's a really respectable grape that winemakers can have fun with. They can either do a more restrained traditional styles, or they can kind of go crazy with it and highlight some of its either floral or herbaceous character. I would love to hear your thoughts about what you thought about these wines. If you are interested in signing up for VinePath, if you're not already a member, become partners with Table 22. It's really easy to sign up. The link is in the bio. I hope you all enjoyed this month. Would love to hear any comments. My email is also in the bio, or feel free to comment Please subscribe to this channel to keep up to date. Come visit me at Baco's Wine and Cheese. Don't be a stranger. Till next time, long live Cabernet Franc. Cheers, everybody.